And we're live. Awesome.
All right.
Yeah. Wow. Excited to be here. Thanks for joining me, Joel. I appreciate you for being here as well. And thanks for everyone else for showing up. We got Debbie and Darlene in the chat already and a few others I'm sure popping in. Thank y'all for
Cool.
being here.
Thank you for having me, Justin. It's an honor to be on your channel, and you're basically one of the only channels I watch. So it's cool to spend some time with you on here, and yeah, appreciate everything you do, man.
Yeah, well, thanks, brother. Yeah, we were just catching up a little bit before going on live, and it's always a pleasure chatting with you. Like it's always such a good time, good experience to catch up with you and see how you're doing because you're always doing such beautiful things. And so that was kind of the idea with this series and this show, and especially you being the first one, was to recognize when there are others out there that are putting the truth out there in their own way and help gain that recognition, help spread the word around so that we can yeah, just share the love. And so, yeah, I wanted to get you on here and,
Thank you.
um, yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So I'll kind of let you take it away. I don't have any agenda or rhyme or reason on direction we want to go. So I guess we'll just start with,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, your introduction and
Cool.
go from there.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody. Good to connect with all of you here. And I come from a different way of purification, and I've learned a lot of purification from this channel and from Charlie and Colleen and everyone that's been supporting all the healing that's happening for so many. And so, I just wanted to share different options for people and different ways of looking at it. And that's what my channel is focused on, is the shamanic side. So lucid dreaming, astral projection, and there's ways of interacting with the earth in specialized ways like gazing, but there's things other than sun gazing. A lot of people are familiar with that. But when you're able to stop and be in silence and learn to do that, you can practice ways of seeing the world and that moves your perception, expands your perception, and changes your relationship with everything. And so purification is something that can be done by going inward and learning to work with your memories. And that's what shamans focus on. They do all kinds of beautiful purification like sweat lodges, and they do vision quests, which is really a 4-day dry fast. And huge breakthroughs happen because people are eating for you. They're burning a fire for you. They're holding space for you. They're singing songs for you. And so if it's not too corny for you, you can handle things like this and you have a real shaman to go work with. Things like that are absolutely powerful ways to heal, but you don't need them. You can do all of this on your own. But what shamans have discovered is that when you get quiet enough to review your memories, and some people just refer to it as life review, and most people don't do it till they're super old. It starts to happen, and in fact, when you die, supposedly, according to shamans, your life really does pass before your eyes. And so they took that on as like, okay, that means a lot, and they started to come to terms with that. And so they just decided, can I do my own life review without death being the reason that it happens? Can I do such a thorough review? And you would think, well, how could you review every memory on your own? But in fact, turns out we have a photographic memory, all of us, of every single event perfectly. It's all been captured within ourselves because that's how amazing we are. And so shamans unlock that. And you start with the most recent memories. And once you start working with the recent ones, it starts to hone the capacity and the attention that you can start to go deeper and deeper into older memories. So by the time you're starting to head backwards, you now have this skill down and you're getting so much friggin' energy from it that you can't stop. So it's a really dynamic and powerful way to change your life forever. And most people have to hear about this over and over and over before it really registers what this is. And there's a reason for that. But that reason, you'll understand that later. But it doesn't have to be this intense thing that you do. You can start off slow. I suggest people write down the name of every partner they've ever had. Spend some time taking and clearing all energy ties with that person. Do it however you feel like doing it. But you could do it with old clothes for practice, where you touch an old garment and you say, I want my energy back before you give it away. And you'll notice it changes if you do it. Once you feel it, you'll see that the hue, the color is a little different. So you're actually breathing your energy back. And it's not like you're trying to hoard energy or you don't want to share energy and you're not a loving, sharing being. It's just that we have the capacity to purify in this very specific, strange way that's proven to have incredible effects. So that's what I do. And it made my dreaming really lucid. It made it so that I don't have unconscious dreams as much. It's more like I'm able to really be active in my at nighttime. And so I don't really ever lose my focus at night anymore. So I wake up feeling the same way I went to sleep. There's no like shift anymore because I'm it's all spilling over because of the recapitulation. And so it's a really cool thing to do. It actually helps you come to terms with like your core wounds, because we all have like a wounded child part that we're still dancing around, even if we don't know it. It's just the nature of the program we're all in. We're still under hypnosis as much of it, even though we're coming out of it. We're going to look back 10 years from now and realize how hypnotized we were now compared to what will be different then. And so this is a really delicate time for all of us. And it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to have support when things are starting to get scary for you and you're coming to terms with your thoughts being very negative and realizing how toxic, the way you've been talking to yourself has been. And it's so critical that we're gentle, because I came from a system where there was a lot of pressure and it created morbidity. I was being forced to change by powerful shamans. I was being told I was going to be left behind, and it was all fear-based. And it took a lot of years to heal from that. I'm not saying I regret any of it, because I was guided in there for a reason, to learn things, and I could handle that. And I kind of saw through it, but I still took it on. And so I just want everyone to know that, as far as purification goes, there's a lot of options. Because for some people, they go to do the food thing, and they haven't done enough shadow work. And so their addiction and their craving surfaces so much wound that they're not prepared then to how to voice what's going on, because a part of their body or a part of their being is resisting. It's not wanting to come along for the transition into purification. So if we honor that and talk to it and figure out where in the chakra is that block, and then really work on what the memory is that's attached to that trauma, the most incredible things occur. But at first, it's very delicate, because we really don't want to look at these core wounds. They're actually a lot of the reason why we're so driven to do other things. And so, like Josh X talks about the turtle and the hare, if you were willing to go slow and not try to race ahead of where you're at, it will seem, and you'll be jealous, and you'll look around and see other people doing things, and it seems like they're going further than you, and you want to be part of the everyone else is doing. But it may be very different than that, and those other people have nothing to do with you. So when we can finally kind of be at peace with that we're all on our own contract, and that all the things that happen to us were really designed, even the unconscious part was sort of a design, not that was guided, but we're just this incredible story, and our story is necessary, and we are a contributor to the whole story. And if our part wasn't in place, and our pain wasn't real, and our trauma wasn't discovered, then we wouldn't yet even know how to relate. Our opportunity here is to really heal on so many levels. We're not just going to heal our bodies. We're going to be healing, the way in which we interact with the mother. It used to be in balance, it will be in balance. Again, she's not in, she's okay. She can do whatever she needs to do to be okay at any point. She's just holding space for us. And she wants to know you. And I don't think people are willing to sort of open up enough to fully be as vulnerable as it takes to meet her, to truly have the direct communication that is available. And that's okay. It is a very, very real thing. And once it happens to you, you're no longer the same and there's no going back. And so these are real events that you will know when it happens to you. It will be, it's not like, oh yeah, I know the earth is sentient and it's a female. And until you know and have talked to her and have been, in that experience with her, I, I can only say that it gets stronger and stronger, and it will change you so much that every effort to meet her is worth doing. And it's available to do at any point, and it doesn't have to be on the earth to do it. Talk to her. She loves you. She wants all of this for you. And so when whatever forms of purification you're drawn to, they will all surface very unique aspects of your being. And they're all meant to be looked at and not avoided. A lot of spiritual people aren't practical, they're not pragmatic, and they're not willing to be sort of they're not willing to take certain steps that they feel aren't spiritual, or they don't recognize that the lessons of the world are all the lessons of God. So there's nothing separate. So going out to get a job doesn't have to be like a bad thing. It can actually be the thing that people need if they've spent all their time in a cult or in a commune. Some of those people need to now come back and learn how to integrate because they created a monster, or they're scared of something. They've made it into something more than it is. So to undo that, it's not that big a deal. You just want to go and face whatever it is just for one day and realize, oh, it's not a scary world. And these people aren't, I don't have, and that's what I had to do because I had gone so far away from society that I'd turned it into a scary place. And so after years of integration and realizing all the psychedelic work required integration, I discovered that through coming back to the smart cities and facing all this stuff. And I didn't have to do that, but I just don't want people to, if you are in a city and that's where your kids are committed and you want to stay and support them, there's ways to purify and heal and evolve and really be that lighthouse in your community. And we aren't limited. I know that it's the smart meters aren't healthy, and I know that all these things are in place, but we really are very adaptable creatures, and we're going to be learning how to be more adaptable as we evolve, and then things are going to start to heal anyways. We're moving into a time of clarity and truth and knowledge around all the poison and the lies and the misguidance that we've been given. So just know that, from a Toltec perspective, the world is your teacher. You go out, I guarantee you, if you put on the armor of God and you go out to get a job, all these incredible things will happen. You can go anywhere with the armor of God and the most incredible things will occur. You walk through the most difficult, most dangerous parts of Seattle at night, and it's just incredible what happens. The schizophrenia and all the things I get to witness and the people I talk to and what they have to tell me. And so, yeah, it's just a really, I meant to focus on a certain things, but I got way off in other stuff. But, it's just that the doors fly open when you're willing to go after any form of purification. And there's so many to choose from. So I'll be in my channel focusing on how to kind of set up lucidity at night, the different things that you can do to intend access to what we call the second attention.
So would you say on your channel you're focusing on a specific order of what you'd recommend people do, or are you providing different options that people can take a look at it and say that you know, one doesn't resonate and they can go to a different one. Like what's your approach on how you're setting up your channel?
Yeah, it'll be kind of both, but I'll be able to delineate that. So there'll be a wide range of options, and then I'll hone in on certain episodes on, you know, the course, the kind of the way in which you would set these things up. So for now, an example, in order, most people struggle to get into silence. And so that's where the beginning is how do we get there? And we can all say that we meditate and stuff, but is everybody coming along for the meditation? Or like, are we all getting silent or not? Because this is real. We want to be silent before we begin. And so I teach people very specific movements that get them out of their mind and into their body. And they're very strange. And some of them require that you remember how to move, which way to turn, and how many movements this way and that way. And they're very Qigong Tai Chi like, but they come out of ancient Mexico. And they were designed for lucidity, for dreaming practices. Those will silent you. If you're willing to do them, they put you in a trance. It's really powerful. The more people doing them together, the more it is to create that harmonious feeling. And you can just, it's like being in a rock band together. You can just, you're all just, you know, the slightest feeling you're feeling from each other. It's just completely in tune. And so from that place, and you can do these alone, do them in the dark. You can do these for hours. And when you discover their potential, they unlock aspects of our energetic structure that we just don't interact with, that shamans have discovered thousands of years ago. And so we do these movements, they make us silent, and then we go into the practice of picking one memory. We'll even role play and get into the memory and how to play it out in a different way. Sometimes you tell a different story than actually what happened. So it's another thing you can do when you're inside the memories. And that's really liberating. You can even do that for bigger events and move perception for the whole planet, for the whole plane. And this will happen. This is what the Mayans did. You know, they left this dream and sought out a different one. They were able to merge and collectively intend and dream into something else. And because we're in such a unique time, that's going to start to become where it used to be meditation, now it's going to move into lucid dreaming. And where it used to be yoga, it's going to be these really strange ways of reaching deeper trance levels, right? Because we're evolving. Like, we're not going to, it doesn't mean all those other things aren't valid, and they are, and they're all going to play a role. But yeah, the kind of silence that happens with this stuff it's unique. And so yeah, I'll be teaching. I'll be teaching some of the basic movements. I'll be wanting to get groups together that want to do the movements, though, not just on my channel, but sort of private. And that's where the movements will get really powerful for us, because we're all gonna, it's nobody's kind of watching, but those that are there just to do the movements. That leads to kind of group dreaming, where we'll end up kind of meeting up at night, and we won't even know like each other, but we will through Zoom, but the capacity is really unlocked. And I've done this with a lot of Russian dreamers. There's a lot of people that are into this all over the world. For some reason, it's the US, there's like 4. It's just hilarious. But all over the world, this is the Carlos Castaneda teachings are really well are understood. I think here they were thought to be a lie, because somebody said something. Even if they were, to me, whatever he wrote about in these books and the practices are so significant that whether he stole that information, it's never been written about before, and it's the strangest stuff, and it works very effectively. So I happen to know it wasn't a lie because I know his teacher from my teacher, and I know the background of all these things, and these are very powerful people.
What's the book, and what author are you referring to?
Yeah, Carlos Castaneda. He wrote 12 books in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And he was in apprenticeship with a man named Don Juan Matus, or Juan Matus. And he just shared his legit story, and he's very honest about it. He was kind of a really dense guy, that had a really hard time understanding what he was being taught. So the books are kind of like, why is this guy so stupid? This old man's telling him this. And so you're kind of, some people get frustrated, but if you read it, it's so cool that he's being so honest. That's the vulnerable part. That's the dreaming part. That's where you can launch. It's like, oh my God, yeah. And like, and he got ushered into a world. He was an anthropologist to go learn about peyote, and he got brought into a world that just flipped the script on him, man. He couldn't even write about it, because he discovered things about the world. This teacher taught him how to go beyond the peyote realm without drugs. He taught him how to go directly to source, and he took him there. And it's kind of brutal. Like if somebody does that to you, like you're such putty in their hands. And for you to let someone do that to you. So I'm not like saying like shamanism is a thing to get into. I'm saying purification that shamans discovered is so legit, so quickly effective. And if somebody really wants to excel at things, I can show you tricks that'll do it, but you're not ready. So it's not like you're ever going to have a problem getting to where you want to go. We just lie to ourselves. Our ego just hijacks this whole deal. It's when you're ready that, and you don't want to do this stuff until you're ready. Like that, I've seen what happens. The tortoise path makes sense. It's consistent. It's sustainable. You're not lying to yourself. Self-honesty is so key here. The spirituality goes away. It's very practical. It's very pragmatic. It's, have I recapitulated enough to go into this next step of silence, which is truly pulling the carpet out even more than I thought, like the foundation has to be incredibly strong in order for you to let it go. It's this weird, like you got to be so grounded in order to travel. Otherwise you will feel your nervous system will fall out of balance really quickly. And so I'm offering real practical steps for people that want to do really long-term deep work. Obviously, you would gravitate towards higher vibrational foods if you do this work. And obviously, this work is easier if you're eating high vibrational foods. So they all support each other. But I don't want people to be concerned about so much that I don't want them to think, well, if I can't do this or eat this way right now, that I'm limited in my capacity to begin an evolutionary path. There are exceptions to that. And I was an exception. I didn't focus on the food at all. I did all kinds of different things. I fasted though. I mean, you can still fast and not eat well. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm not promoting this at all. Like the sooner we get acidity out of our body, the better chance we have of survival and being okay, and then being able to think clearly. And if you're battling parasites, it's so difficult to even come to terms with how much pain you're in, because you're being told this whole story. You're being kept in this drama of your ego that's trying to feed the what we call the hungry ghost, because something's empty in us, and instead of honoring that, we try to fill it with the hungry ghost, and you can't fill it. And so actually you need to do the opposite. You need to empty more. Your empty ghost you just need to keep emptying. Like, don't feed it, and it will die. And then everything else will die too. So that's what emptiness is. And it can be done through breath work with the memory cells. I've gotten to the point I don't have to focus on the memories of recapitulation. I can go right to the cellular layer, and I'm just witnessing memories like cruise through like data files. And my energy is just coming to me like I'm cleaning out my MacBook. And I just spend hours like that. And I come out of there and I'm so fucking high. I have to do the movements for hours just to be okay, because I don't know how to do it any different. I've learned to accept that intensity is the way that I have to live, because I'm not satisfied any other way. There's nothing to do, like, and it's not like I don't know how to relax. You have to be able to relax completely in order to do this work. And in martial arts, the only way you can generate a tremendous amount of energy is if you're completely relaxed. Because from that place, you all of a sudden, like, I don't know, it's like it's how sprinters do it. It's whoever gets off the block, right? And so it's that moment of deep surrender where your body's linked to the moment when the person's going to strike you, so that you're not, there's nothing and it's so it's psychic. You see the intent. And that's how I know that this dream isn't what we think it is. I dream events, then I walk right into them all the time. And I'm just say thank you, because it's so beautiful. I don't know how it works. My teachers would do this to me. They would tell me things that were going to happen to me, and they would happen to a T. And as you start to come to terms with it, that that's available to us, so we start to see and feel and interact with time in a non-linear way, really, really cool things start to unlock. And then you quit trying to reference them. I don't keep track of anything that happens to me. And the more I don't do that, the more happens. So you come out of this need to maintain an inventory. You become liberated.
Yeah, it seems like all of these tools are just peeling away the layers that keep us from staying present. Because presence is truly where the magic happens. And so when we can let go of all of these, what's holding on to us, these sort of tethers that are keeping us back, and past events and traumas or whatever else, and then the more that we can kind of like cut the cords and let those go and come back to that present moment, that's when that is that activation. That's when we can kind of go into that next level. So um, yeah, that sounds fantastic. So I guess my question would be, what would be, I'm sure checking out your channel would be a great place for someone to start, but where would, if someone was curious as to a good first step to get into this, what would you recommend? Where would you recommend they go, or how would you recommend they start?
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, the Carlos Castaneda books are an amazing way to start this for sure. Not necessary, but and then for women, honestly, there's a whole different. There are women that wrote about the same teacher who were apprentices as well, who were the cohorts of Carlos Castaneda, and so their names are Florinda Donner Grau and Taisha Avalar. If you Google search Carlos Castaneda and the witches, they called them witches because they were very powerful people, but they didn't call themselves that, but that's what you would Google, and their names are in there. You'll see. And yeah, their books changed my life. I've read them over and over and over since the 90s, and I really don't read much else because I still, to be honest, they were written through a very unique, they were given a dreaming task by their teacher to write these books, as a way of sort of putting closing a door, because this lineage is done. It came to an end, and that's why they started teaching and writing books, and they did start offering these workshops all over the world, and so it is something that you can go to a group called cleargreen.com to sign up for their workshops, and that's where you'll meet all these Russians that come all over from all the world, and you can fly to LA once a year, and it's really powerful. I can't sleep when I'm there because I get so much energy from it.
Wow.
Um,
It's interesting that it's so commonly with Russians, and then when you start looking into the Tartarian Empire and how that was primarily in that region and how they were so much more advanced, and makes total sense
yeah,
that would be
yeah,
the
it is. They just are the most lucid dreamers, man. I mean, they're so capable that even Carlos's apprentices aren't able to. The teachers aren't able to keep up with the Russian students,
mm,
and so they're kind of on their own. And I feel for them. I'm not at that level, and but that's okay. I mean, it's just so cool. Like we're just in a time where that's just. Anyways, it's incredible to be around. They are the sweetest people. They're so, I mean, they're really dense. Like they're dense in this other way, but they're so liberated in another. And we're all just so fascinating. And I'm sure we're strange to, I'm strange because of the way I behave. And I I just love it. I love meeting all walks of life. And when you're all doing these movements, there's no language that's needed. There's no we don't have to agree about flat earth. We don't have to agree about anything, because we're just doing these movements. And this harmony happens with people that think, they believe the media. I'm totally, and so I've had to, and that's getting weird. I'm in a time now. I'm like, wow, are we just going to keep doing this and trying to kind of figure out how this is going to work out? But at the same time, I just point that out that we can live that way. If I'm doing these movements all the time and I'm really on it, then there's no way I'm ever projecting my stuff onto people, because I'm just too observe. I'm in a state of observation. And so, going back to recapitulation quickly, what you brought up is key, because it is to be in the now. The reason that it's so much better than, like, because one of the things they talk about is erasing personal history, and that you actually don't want people to be holding on to a view of you that is of the past, because then it's really hard to unbind from it. You almost have to cut people out of your life that still think of you as you were, because they're holding that image of you. For shamans, that's actually, it really affects your lucidity or astral travel. It affects your ability to be free. And you start to sense all these cords, and you just become this cord cutter. But people take offense because you're taking space. And it's just, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this because I love you. And then when you do that, then and you quit projecting or being at odds with the fact that they're still trying to pull onto you or whatever, you just really resolve things. So the now space is key, but you're not only recapitulating to erase your past, you're actually going back to collect all the feelings that your child didn't get to continue playing with. Every morning as a child, your brand new feeling come in. You've never felt this feeling. Every day is brand new. Everything is incredible. When you go back and pick up all those feelings and you bring them to your present day, you are literally that child with all of that view, but you start to apply it as a shaman. You apply it as a liberated, lucid astral traveler that is so in love with the earth and all the people, that you're willing to do, this incredibly unique thing that you've discovered that you don't even know how to tell people about. It's taken me 27 years to even talk about this. The things that I've got myself into were really difficult and challenging, and it took me a long time to integrate what happened. And I finally am able to a place where it's like, okay, yeah, this really did, all these things happen. I didn't make it up. And there's other people now that I'm meeting that are like me. Um, and so I stand out in that community that I talked about in Clear Green, because most people don't have experience outside of like reading the books. I worked with actual shamans. I verified the books through the other shamanic training. I verified things and learned from teachers that were truthers along with being shamans. Um, and so the hypnosis that came off of me allows me to really be that much more of a dynamic support for this group. And so even though I don't need to go there anymore, I do support it because I'm so thankful for them. And so I just sort of add that element to it. And I'm willing to be the fool or the humble guy that's like, I'm willing to be the guy that no one else is comfortable being, because if you're willing to be the fool, no one can make you a fool. And that's how I deal with everything. That's why I love my jobs and going to challenging work environments, is because I could care less what happens to me in every second. And so I'm liberated to just play it all out, and I get to create my own rules, because it's like, you guys play by my rules, because I'm only here for, like, you switch the narrative and pretty soon they don't even know what's going on. And they're almost worried that you're going to fire them, and at the same, but you couldn't. So it's so cool. This stuff's real. It's called the art of controlled folly, and that's what shamans do. They no longer have folly because they become impeccable, and so they have to actually match the perception of everyone around them, so that everyone thinks that they're just like them. And then you can have the most incredible adventures. You're learning how to match other perceptions. You're borrowing from the archetype of that person you're hanging out with. And that teaches you how to not fall into these archetypes. Everyone is fallen into an archetype for the most part. And they're just waiting there for us. And now that we're moving into this new time, there's a whole new kind of archetype coming. And all these false prophets will rise. And all these strange things are going to happen. as people move into lucidity, right? And so, how you find people that are super humble and are just like earth based and, you know, practical and pragmatic and aren't tripped out and not being extreme in their spiritual intensities, you know, it's going to happen really easily and beautifully. We don't have to force it. You don't have to do anything extreme. You know, forgive is the big thing. I think we have stuff to let go still. We still have our pain
Yeah,
and
we get into this idea that the it's playing into that victim mentality where we think that, you know, we're bound to these different things, like they're holding on to us, when in actuality it's us clinging to them. And so we just have to let go. We have to let go, and as soon as we recognize that we hold all the keys, we hold all the power to do that letting go and step into that divine surrender, wow, then it's truly, truly, you're unlimited. You are truly unlimited. So yeah, well said.
yeah. I mean, for shamans, the unlimitedness is that eventually, with enough silence, that which you're you're interacting with at the moment disappears. So we actually aren't here, but the fact that we talk to ourselves glues us to this perception. And when you unlock that, you're now in the abyss and there's nothing there. You will come back naturally like glue. It's just so there's nothing to be afraid of. But when you start to journey away from thought, it's no joke, and it's the most healing thing that can happen. You reach the well, right? That is where you can always access your source, is through that breath, through that place, through that nothing, that emptiness. And you spend a lot of time scouring the inside of your being. Like, I don't care how dialed your breath work is, you can always get it more dialed, and you can scour more and more and more and more inside, and you will find things. So just keep going if you're there, and don't let anyone hold, like, don't let anyone tell you, oh, you're like, just, there's nothing, there's no precedent that's being set here. We're on our own, and that's okay. That's the time we're in. It's beautiful. Don't copy somebody. You know, this is the time we discover who we are. And and if we're copying someone, we're just going to have to go back. You're just faking it. You're not being you. You're just trying to keep up with the Joneses, but it said it's somebody that you admire. So don't fall into that trap. You know, that's an archetype. We are so, our imagination is in the recapitulation. You go back to your child, I don't care how you do it, go back to there, figure out how to spend time in those feelings, start to collect them. And I mean, I didn't have, like, you know, when I was 4 or 5, something happened. I was at somebody's home and I felt a feeling in their home that I didn't feel my whole life. I didn't feel it in my family. And now that I look back, I know what it was. It was consciousness. I was just running through somebody's house. I don't even know where I was. It was somebody, and I felt consciousness, and it became the driving force of my life. I knew I'd discovered something. It took me years later to understand why I wanted that feeling again. And until I discovered, you know, remnants of that feeling. So it's a weird way to talk, but this is like the blueprint that you start to discover when you're doing strange dreaming practices. You start to realize it's all connected. Your future self is creating the past to get to you, to the future self. It's not linear. It's whole, it's holistic, it's wholesome. And our journey through is so that we could truly discover new neural pathways in the struggle. The new neural pathways are the forging of the new evolutionary line that is our returning to our genetic memory and remembering that we are evolutionary beings. So this dehypnotization, or however you call that, it's we're actually doing it, and it's going to be very uncomfortable, like it was for Neo, like it was in the Matrix. It's not going to ever be where it just is, you know, without a noticeable ego death.
What's
And
it's supposed to be uncomfortable
yeah,
because it's through the discomfort that we learn. Like all of these all of these discomforts are just challenges to add vibrancy and give flavor to this experience. Because without them, I mean, if we're truly looking at this from a high vantage point, it would be fucking boring.
Yeah.
Like it would be so boring and we would learn nothing. If there was no challenge, if there was no hardship, if there's no difficulty to it, then we would just win the game and we're like, okay, well,
Yeah.
that sucked. Like, what is that? So that's why we introduced all of these challenges, and we keep adding more and more challenges the more times we play this game because it adds more intricacy and it allows that expansion to continue to grow and continue to expand. So it's only going to get harder because we keep asking to make it harder because all we want to do is just continue learning and expanding. It's just
Well
a fun
said.
game.
Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a miracle. It's a design that is so, when you really are looking at the creator force, if you spend some time, and whether it's mushrooms or however, for people, when you're really hanging out there, it's like a wizard. You're like inside this, to witness the design and how everything's connected. It just shows up on such a 12 dimensional level. You just start to see it. I mean, it's there. And the more time you can hang out there, and that's why I do all this stuff, is because I'm not going to eat mushrooms all the time. It's not sustainable. So I figured out a way to do this without them. And it works. And I know that it's a big jump for a lot of people, but it's nothing to be, it's exciting to know that that exists, that these very unique old practices are available, and that that not only that, but that we're going to take these old practices, all of us, and we're just going to simplify them. We're just going to keep simplifying everything, because everything had to be complex because we got thrown into the complexity. And now, as we're all returning home, we're just going to just go right back to that simplicity. But as the way, we're still deep in the complexity. So we're still going to be doing these strange movements or figuring out how to, you know, whatever it is, or some of you are going to have to go, you know, unlock certain emotional things that you're not willing, that you haven't been able to face in your family, if your grandpa or whoever, something, and so these shamanic deaths, these uncomfortable things where we get up in the middle of the night, even though we don't want to, and we have to go face or deal with something. We have to become an adult. We have to be mature. We have to find, whatever. A lot of people will avoid every stressful thing that they can, and they think that's spirituality, but that actually creates anxiety. So let's just get real. Be willing to do anything, like be any archetype any day. Taisha Abelard wrote that book, The Sorceress's Crossing. She spent weeks as a homeless person on the street. Completely, you would never know that she was the most powerful woman that ever walked through that city. But she completely played it to a T, because she was that. When you're liberated, you can act. You can completely step into any role, and you will absolutely fall in love with it, because you're actually healing your shadow in there. You're dealing with your undealt with everything. Like, it all shows up for people in the theater. And that's why some of them are so beautiful and powerful, the ones that can really move their perception and do dynamic stuff. And that's why Hollywood's such a place of vultures, right? They really had to steal those people's energy, because they shine so bright. They're so skilled. Whether they were MK Ultra'd and trained to do that or not, they're still, some of them are still just were gorgeous, lucid children that turned into the most incredible, sought after stars. So we should honor everyone for where they're at and how and what they're struggling with, and really try to have, rather than compassion, Toltecs seek the place of no pity, where you stop feeling sorry for yourself. It usually happens in a really intense way, where you finally really, really stop feeling sorry for yourself, and therefore stop feeling sorry for anyone. And honestly, that's the only effective teacher you'll ever find, is someone that's reached that place. Um, they're the only ones that'll be honest with you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's where that true integrity, true authenticity, true honesty comes from. If you're not trying to sugarcoat anything,
Yeah.
you just lay it out as it is. This is, and yeah, yeah. So well said.
Yeah. I really appreciate the teachers that I've had in my life that brought the practicality in, the pragmatism, the sobriety. Um, because I was spiritual. I was thinking, I had spiritual fear. I was tripped out on truthing. I was caught in information. I was forming, you know, fear-based concepts based on input. And she just had to really shake me out of it. And I mean, I have children, and here I am trying to juggle a family while becoming, being a student to some of the most intense shamans in the world. And she just had to really, thankfully help me get clear on what priorities truly in my heart were. And that really brought me into balance, and still is. And I'm still working all that out. I went through a lot, and the integration process will take a long time. But I don't want any of you have to go work with these and discover this energy in that way. That's just the ego. That's just the unconscious, net out there that can catch you in its snares. And I'm lucky I got out. Others did not. I know people that are in mental wards because of going through the same training alongside of me. It's a very real world we live in which perception, when it expands, becomes something you have to take care of. And so what I offer is, as well, as when people are removing one shield, it's key that you have a way to replace a shield. And so really, those are your happy thoughts, or for those of us that are really have gotten simple, it's pretty easy. But if you're still in the complexity and you're breaking shields down, you kind of have to be more honest with yourself and where you're at, that you really need to set this up. And that can be, it can be a lot of things. It can be your altar, and that you change your altar and you set up your intention different. And you're like, okay, I'm really going into this. I'm going to go into purification. I'm going to remove this core shield. And I'm putting all of my intent into it. And I'm going to have 3 people in my life that support me. And we're going to meet every night at 8 p.m. We're going to light a candle, and I'm going to get through each 24 hours. And when I can't make it, I'm going to call and I'm going to ask them to help me, and I'm going to cry, and I'm going to get like, we're creative people. We love each other. We can support each other. And there's all these different ways in which we can be realistic about how hard this is. So whatever you're wanting to do, be sure to come to terms. Eventually you're going to realize, wow, this is so much harder than I thought, and I need this kind of help, or I need a coach, or I need these things. It may not be what you think you need, but if you're willing to be vulnerable and you're willing to ask, you're going to bring those 3 people along on a ride, your peers, your friends, and they're going to learn something from the whole experience. So as much as you may not want to ask for that help or feel like you're imposing, you may be opening a door. So there's just so cool. Like, I think, if people want to start doing these movements with me too, it'll be a really cool way to get super silent and see what comes up afterwards. And people that are willing to be vulnerable, especially in these private groups, they can be just so healing for everybody. And the movements, then we process what came up, and then we move again, and does an incredible thing. It helps you to disperse and relocate all that energy, because our chakras there's no negative energies. We just need to move them. So I teach how to make sure you don't have stagnant energy. And so I went through celibacy. I went through all kinds of powerful rites of passage that taught me how to move energy. And I did it without the foods, technically. So which caused me years of grief. You know what I mean? Like, if I would have known about what you guys have taught me, it would have been so less struggle. But it is what it is. And I bring that up because I just know that some people, their emotions are so tied to food that they just can't start there. They need to focus on the wound itself. And I know people that can help, and I can help, and Justin can help. I mean, but we got to be honest with ourselves. We got to say, hey, look, this is bigger than I thought, you guys. I'm so sorry. I want to come along here, but I just cannot do it right now, and then we can be creative. And so things like the movements and the recapitulation, and things like practicing dreaming and writing your dreams down and starting to give focus toward the abstract. I teach people how to observe the shadows and stay and just look at the shadows in the forest until there's nothing but then all of a sudden it rotates and moves, and and that's what gazing is. You let everything disassemble. You gaze at the details of a leaf for hours until you've memorized it, and then you find it. You go to a forest at night in your dream and you find that very leaf, and there'll be leaves that will try to trick you. It'll have a little difference, but when you can start to see detail like that, you've moved into the nawal space. Okay, the tonal and the nawal. Santos talks about this, but I'd love to talk to him about it because there's more to it than I think he's looked into, but he's looked into everything. So there's no way he would know every detail. I mean, so I'm not at odds with that. But the tonal and the nawal is a really dynamic thing that you can read about in the Carlos Castaneda books. But basically, we are such incredible creatures. We are creatures of perception. We are not bound even to this form. We are formless. We are energetic first. The physicality is something that we manifested. It's a gift. But know that, because when it comes to disease, when it comes to all these things, we're not physical creatures first and foremost. So it's in the cells. The cells are energetic. There's always hope if you come to terms with the shamanic side. And shamanic knowledge is going to be really needed as we move into this toxicity overlay, as we start to heal and stuff. There's going to be a lot of people that need real help, and they're going to need the kind of help that goes beyond just food, and it's going to take a team effort in that respect. So there is a place for all this more intense shamanic stuff, I think, that's going to start to become available. And so yeah, it's just, there's just so much that this unlocks, and it continues to unlock for me. And I can talk about this stuff for days and days and days on end. But at the same time, I spend a lot of time not talking, not doing. And the not doings can happen, in really cool ways. Like when you are out in the wilderness at night and you see something and you can't tell what it is, but it looks really cool, and you're like, oh wait, is that alive? Or is like the wind, or something will do something. When you can catch those moments, let it turn into something else if you can. I don't know how to explain this, but this is huge. If you can let the world disassemble, it will do so in the strangest ways, especially at night in the wilderness. And so most people don't go walking alone in the wilderness at night, right? But when you do, when you start to want to know the earth so much that you're willing to sort of be doing things of that nature, then these really cool events occur, and she will show you things. And I've gone into the wilderness at night and heard the most beautiful music I've ever heard in my entire life. I was serenaded by something that I cannot to this day understand, but I walked toward it in the pitch black. I couldn't see a thing, and I mean, it was insane, and it wasn't an easy experience in all senses, but I reached the heart of this music in the middle of this most magical forest that I spent a lot of time in. And I just knew I was the only person in that woods. And I knew that music was not from human beings whatsoever. And I, to this day, don't know what it was, but the minute I reached it, it stopped. And then it started up across the entire forest. Like I could just hear it in the distance. It just the next second. And I know for people, these aren't possible. This isn't possible, but for me, it was very real. These are very real things and that's just kind of one of many things that happens when you open the Toltec door. It's a big door to open, because the dreaming allows you to make adjustments. You end up wanting to come home. You end up wanting to go to bed, basically, and do the dreaming instead of really anything else. Your excitement switches, and so you start to live 24 hours a day. And there's a lot to that. You can get a lot of time is measured by intensity, right? So shamans can spend a year of their life would be the equivalent of an average person spending their entire life as far as how much intensity moved through their chakra line. And so I think it's not an offense to anybody. It's just that's how time works. So if time is measured by intensity and time doesn't exist, then it's just intensity. And so going back to that now, the reason you do all this work is so that you can be one with eternity in the now. And eternity exists here and now all the time, all around us. There's nothing separating us from it. And yet, until you are silent, you cannot activate the active side of infinity. And it's a threshold. And when you cross it, like I know a lot of us have had silence, but it gets more. You go to places of silence, you're like, it's like poof. You know your past thoughts for a long time. Like you can swim now. You don't have to battle them. You got crossed this like this something chatter. It goes. It takes years, but when it's like poof, and you know you've crossed that threshold, and you can spend hours moving your perception in dynamic ways and witnessing the mother and all of her beauty while snowboarding, while lovemaking, while traveling the world, while listening to music. There's nothing to not do. Do it all. Go and get it. Like this is it. That's another thing I emphasize. Like I don't believe this next life thing at all. I think this is it. And that it's tied to the parallel lives that you will travel to and get to know. And your soul is indestructible and eternal. But it doesn't mean you ever get to do this again. This is it. And everything that you can put into this here and now will affect the whole. So it's the 100th monkey thing. This isn't about you. This is for the others. So we are the others. So we do this for you. We do this for each other. And because we do that, there's nothing to not do. We're all in. Once we're clear, then it's simple.
Yeah, it just goes back to staying in that presence, because there is no such thing as anything besides the here and now, except for the illusion that we fool ourselves into believing that there is something different. And the less that, which is part of the experience and part of that challenge that we ask to participate with, and it does add a level of vibrancy and a gift to overcome. But that's the name of the game, is to come back to that and then expand from there. And truly, that's where it all begins. That's where it all happens.
Yes,
Wow.
yeah, a beginning point. Yeah. And for
Yeah.
shamans, when they recapitulate, the goal is to get to the 0 point, which is the womb, right? So you get back to the beginning, and at some point you'll have what's called an usher after you've done this work, and you, instead of having a memory, you will relive it. You will literally relive it, and it will scare the shit out of you.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. And when that happens, you're no longer playing the same game.
Mm-hmm.
And so the 0 point is the beginning, and it's hard to get back to the beginning, and the basics are harder than the advanced stuff. So in Aikido and martial arts, everyone wants to skip the basics. The basics is where it's at, you guys. So don't ever think, that you want to be somewhere else than you are. Just honestly, I don't think most of us are able to admit where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
And then we spin our wheels our whole lives trying to pretend or uphold what we thought, what we told ourselves, or what our social circles would like for us to be. And it's just how we break through that is your own creative.
Yeah, it's that ego trap of always comparing ourselves to others and keeping us in that wheel, and there's so many different wheels that are always just these traps to kind of we grab a hold of, and then we get stuck, and we get stuck as long as we need to, and we'll just go around and around and around until we are like, okay, well, I'm tired of that experience. Let's do something different.
And because the future self is created all this from the future, then we've already arrived.
Yeah, we've already won.
Yeah.
But it's all about expanding, enjoying that journey from here to there, and seeing what else we can learn along the way. Yeah,
It is, man. It's such a gift, and I'm so excited for all the breakthroughs that everyone's having, and the traveling that's going to happen, and all the different opportunities that will unfold, in the way that we can, uh, reconnect and heal from all this, all that we've been through. It's a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. Beautiful. Well, this has been an absolutely incredible conversation. I've really enjoyed hearing your perspective and hearing about your channel and your process. And so I guess just to kind of wrap up, where can people find you and how can they reach out to you and what would you like to do in that regard?
Yeah, please just, feel free to email me if anyone wants to talk. And I started the channel to connect with like-minded people, and I know the shamanic stuff's not for everybody, so I just wanted to kind of focus on that and create a, and I'd love for people to read these books, and so we could talk about the books and stuff if people are interested. If not, no big deal. I do it anyways with other people. So yeah, but my email, for directions 77, so FOUR directions 77 at gmail.com, and then my YouTube channel. I don't know how you say it, but it's in here. So it's Sunwolf 1111. Um,
Yeah, I think it's just named your name, Joel Schafer.
yeah, yeah.
But
Sorry, it goes
but
by Joel Schafer, but to type
yeah,
it in,
the
it's
link.
something else.
Yeah,
So
Sunwolf
I'm new to
1111.
all this.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
all that information's in the show notes for anyone
Cool.
looking. You get a link to the channel and his email as well.
Yeah, and some of it's very abstract and sounds like, what's this guy talking about? But some of it's very practical and pragmatic, and so I'll try to title things based on like what, make sense for you, like, because it does there's a variety of topics within this stuff. So I appreciate, yeah, anyone that wants to make a comment in my videos or ask questions, and I'm happy to do a video based on your questions. The more people that are curious, the more it encourages me to really give you an opportunity to understand kind of what Toltecs have unveiled, and because it does take a lot of time to sort of sort through even their perspective on things, because it's just not linear. So it takes time. It's a lot of talking and getting to know certain feelings and certain moods. So thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, brother. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing yourself, and thanks for your service. It's truly seen, it's truly noticed, and we truly appreciate it. So, yeah, if y'all are curious, definitely give Joel's channel a subscribe and feel free to reach out. And I've been speaking with Joel for months now, and I always enjoy conversations with him, and he's always very approachable, and so I appreciate that. So
Thank you,
I'm looking,
Justin. It's
yeah,
been wonderful, man. I really appreciate your time and all that you do for so many.
of
It's
course, brother. Yeah, of course.
absolutely incredible. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Hi, man.
All right, all right. Well, it was a pleasure, and I love you, and I love everyone here, and we'll talk to you next time. Well, I guess quick announcements just before I end. I will be doing another one in this series with Rebecca Dawn on Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. So this will be another, this is a start to this kind of series where we're going to be showcasing channels and helping people get the word out.
Awesome.
So I'm really excited about that, and then yeah, we'll have our health show with Tony on Wednesday at I think we're gonna do that at 3 p.m. Central Time, and then I might do a Telegram live chat either tomorrow or Tuesday, and then Friday we've got Freaky Fridays with Charlie. So always a good week coming up. Um,
Awesome.
but yeah, brother, you have a wonderful rest of your evening, and everyone else, love y'all, and we'll talk to you next time.
Awesome. Take care, guys.